All right, this is the 5th time I've recorded all this. I made a list. I'm not even gonna show the initial ones, and I'm just gonna talk, all right? I'm really bad at recording myself. Probably seeing this on YouTube, otherwise maybe an Instagram reel, little clips or something. My name is Keegan, and this is my 2017 Shelby GT350. When I got it, it was pretty much stock. It had headers and an E85 tune. The guy that owned it before drove it for, I want to say, I think he was the second owner, had 16,000 miles when I got it. One of my buddies who also has a 2017 GT350 tracks it heavily. I'll put a picture of his right here. I'll see what my editing skills can do, but I'll try to put one right here. Bunch of aero, really cool build. I basically just copied him on a lot of stuff. He's been the inspiration behind a lot of it. He brought me to the track one time, basically 3 months after I owned the car. Kind of pressured me because you got to drive the car on the track. It's built for the track, whatever. I was kind of nervous, but then I was like, you know what, whatever. Bought the car. I'm gonna drive the car. And for those of you that drive these on the track, you know the one time is it's way too many times, and then you're just in. Kind of takes some seat time to really know what it needs. You'll never, I shouldn't say you'll never. Someone who's never been to the track before, you'll never see 10/10ths of this car or its full potential. You never realize the full potential until you've really spent a lot of time in it. Tons of track hours, and things can still be new, and you can still discover that you need new things. The first thing that I felt I needed was wheels and tires. You know, the PS4s that are on the car, I actually think are a really good tire, being that they're a 300 treadwear tire. They're ultra high performance. When they're warm, they act like a 200 treadwear tire. Come on pretty slow, but they do last quite a bit. The latter half of your session is usually a lot of fun. I think it's more than enough tire to be able to have the car perform how it should, but it's not too much tire to where it's going to teach you bad habits. Making a big jump from something like 300 treadwear to 100 treadwear, or even a slick, you know, without anything in between, which is what I did. The terrible idea just in terms of developing as a driver. After that, we went with lowering springs. They're just the Ford Performance lowering springs. They drop it down a little bit. I think maybe 1.5 inches. It's been a long time since I've done it, so it could be less than that, maybe 1 inch. But I just wanted to get a spring that I knew was compatible with the MagneRide. I have no intentions on going coilovers. I know a lot of guys do like the coilovers because they're more predictable than a MagneRide, but just my own personal opinion, whether it's better or worse, I do like the sophistication of MagneRide. You know, being able to change the settings. And if you do drive the car on the street, which I do occasionally, I used to do it all the time, but now since it's more of a track build, it is a track build. I'm less inclined to drive it on the street, more inclined just to have all the fun on the track. Plus, after you've been to the track and you drive on the road is just so boring. It's uncomfortable because you've done all this stuff to it. It's just no good. All right, it came with the E85 tune from Livernois. It was a flex tune, which was really nice. This was way back before the EPA came in and completely ruined everybody's lives. Tuner's inability to create flex tunes from wideband, as it would, you know, they have to use the O2s for these. It would be considered tampering with emissions, and so they're just not allowed to do that anymore. You know, at the track, half the battle is your own comfort, and despite the Recaro seats having sufficient bolsters, I didn't feel they were enough for, you know, what I was looking for at the track. When I was looking for a car like this, I would not even look at one that didn't have the Recaro seats. So there's a little bit of guilt there. We went with the Sparco Grid Q seats, and we put a cage in so we could have harnesses. It's a mock-up cage that we built here in-house, mimicking the Watson roll cage, which my buddy has, and that's kind of what we based it off of. It's just a 4-point, very standard, just allowed me to run harnesses. My whole idea behind the build, and my idea behind building any performance vehicle, is to make it strong and then make it faster. So I try to do all the things that would enhance what the car already has. The thing I did was caster camber plates, which I feel it needed. There wasn't a 2019 or 20 to come with them, so we went with the Vorschlag caster camber plates, and I love them. You can get 3 degrees, I think at least, I think you can get more, I think you get like 3.5, which I kind of find is a sweet spot. It kind of depends on driving style, tires, vehicle setup, track, in front of wheels and tires, camber plates, aero, anything. I think the most important at the track is brakes, because you can really shorten up the amount of track time you have by not being able to slow down. So anyway, we went with the gyro disc two-piece rotors. I've got about 4 track days on them. I would say very minimal heat checking. I'll try to get some close-ups of it, which is just completely standard. I would say 4 track days, one of those being at Road America, partial Road America track day. The rest of them containing, 5 or 6 20-minute long sessions. And you multiply that by 4 days. That's a pretty tall order. Paired with the gyro disc rotors, I have Cobalt XR1s in the front and Cobalt XR3s in the back. I've heard good things about G-Lock, I've heard bad things about them, I've heard good things, about Ray Bestos, all these pads that you commonly hear, great pads. I wanted something that kind of stood out upon the rest and something that was, really high performing, that had a lot of really good data behind it. Just my own experience. Cobalt has by far the best pads. They've been with these gyro disc rotors the whole time. I did the whole thing at once with Castrol SRF racing fluid, which is also my recommendation for racing fluid. I would say they probably have maybe 60% more life on them. Usable life too. Say usable life because, even though you can have pad material still left on there, obviously thickness of pads has a lot to do with how much it dissipates heat. And so if you have a really thin pad, they just it seems to be pretty exponential. As the pad gets less and less, it kind of decreases in life faster just from heat. Really great setup. I love the brakes. I don't think I'll change anything for the brakes for the remainder of the time I have this car. It's pretty common to move to an 18-inch wheel so you can run takeoff slicks, better tire selection, kind of all that stuff. I don't have any intention on that because for one, I really like how a 19-inch rim looks. I like big brakes. I just think it's optimal for the setup of the car. If I was to go full race car build, like 100%, like Kevin. Kevin does everything right. Honey Badger Shenanigans on Instagram, he does everything you should to these cars to make it fast and practical for the track. It's really cool too, and it's very fast and it's loud. And I'm pretty sure he's done with shakedowns now to where the car's I think he's just gonna tour tracks, from my understanding. Anyways, back to this one. At Road America, I say half a track day because about halfway through, I developed this kind of ugly misfire. Came off the track, kind of checked everything out, car cooled down, started back up, ran completely fine. Next session out, after one long stretch coming into turn 5, getting back on throttle, it just completely fell on its face. I'll attach pictures and everything, but basically what happened is we broke a ring land on cylinder 8. It caused a ring to kind of curve up through the cylinder wall, started delaminating the cylinder wall. And we found it was because we pulled the spark plug, and the spark plug was just smashed into itself. And it's kind of our, and you could just see there was a bunch of dents on the spark plug. Got it back home, scoped the cylinder, it was just a disaster. That piston was shot, the cylinder was shot, and it just was no good. I called up RPG, Will at RPG, told him what I was looking for, I told him what I do with the car, and he knew exactly what to do. Voodoo platform, you kind of have to manage your expectations. It can be a glass house. What you have to do is just try and eliminate the parts that could be of issue. So what we ended up doing is sticking with the Voodoo platform. So initially I was just going to go with a short block. We do all of our work here ourselves, installation of performance parts, fabricating our own stuff, but when it comes to engines, I just kind of like to leave it to professionals. Not that we're not capable of doing it, or I'm capable of doing it. I think that my archaic set of tools and knowledge as far as engine building goes can be insufficient compared to what's out there. So with that being said, I decided to just send him my entire long block, and I wanted him just to assemble it. We ended up porting my heads. They were sent down to Frankenstein. Frankenstein ported them, did an amazing job. They look phenomenal. I'm really sad when I put the motor in the car because that's the last time, hopefully, that you'll ever see them. We used all the same timing components. The timing components in the 350s are very good. They're durable. A lot of people with other modular motors will kind of go with 350 timing components, so I was comfortable. Will was comfortable with keeping them. So all the valves are the same. They did a complete valve job on it, cleaned everything up. It's got PAC 1281X valve springs in it, so they're a bit stiffer, which obviously is very smart as you go up in compression. New oil pump gears and crank sprocket. Full balance tubes between the cylinder heads for oil and coolant. I think this is one of the most important cooling mods, and I think if you have the engine out of the car, you should do it for both oil and coolant. I think it's just a very, very necessary thing to do, and it's the hot spots can easily be taken care of, I think, in the Gen 1 and Gen 2 Voodoos with the oil and coolant balancing lines. I'm not actually super confident on that, but I know a lot of guys that have had issues with it before switch to those, ends up working out for them. With the engine being 12.8 to 1, it's really high compression, but it's not super high. I wanted to make sure that I didn't deal with any like pre-det engine knock, as it's also referred to. The E85 that comes out of the pumps is not, it's very, very inconsistent. It can be 51%, it can be 83%. It's very uncommon to be either one of those, but it is super common to be 70 in the summers and 60 in the winters. I don't drive this in the winters, obviously, but the summers, the little variation that's in there, I'm just not super comfortable with. The tune I have from Lund, tuned at 85%, and so I want to make sure that I have the sufficient fuel for the tune, basically. So I've ran several different kinds of E85. I've had pump in there, runs and drives. The car doesn't necessarily love it. I've ran 1-ethanol R in it. I think 1-ethanol R has too high of octane for the motor in the tune, to the point where it's a little boggy, it's a little sluggish down low. Don't think it gets a complete burn of the fuel. Has a really tough time starting when cold, like sometimes it doesn't start at all. I think the just the high octane doesn't allow the fuel to burn as properly as it could. I've also tried C85 in here, and C85, bar none, is the best fuel, I think, for this car. I think it's the best E85 out there. I don't think it's close. The car sounds meaner on it, which seems ridiculous because it's a fuel, but it does make a difference. It pulls significantly harder, and this is significantly harder than all of those than pump. It's a completely different car on C85. And I'm not being sponsored by VP, but if VP is watching this, I'll take a discount on my next barrel because it's a little expensive, which I understand, because if you look at the formula, I believe Smeding or the Engine Guy released a video on YouTube with a VP rep showing everything that the C85 has in it. It does contain MTBE, methyl tert butyl ether, I think is what that stands for. It can be pretty harsh on some fuel components if your injectors aren't like if your injectors aren't made to handle that, you shouldn't run it. I've got the 1050X injectors in here. Looking on the website, they can handle it. It also has, obviously it's ethanol. It has MTBE. I believe it has some methanol in there and nitromethane, probably 1 or 2%. I actually don't know. That's just a complete guess. But it has to be very little. But when you smell the stuff, it smells like there's something in there that's actively killing you. It smells really good. I've also ran X85 in here from them. The car kind of behaves like it would on, pump 85. It's just fine. And then I've ran X98, which is 98% ethanol, and the car really likes that too. These, I would say, power differences, none of them really stand out. The car kind of acts the same. I would say the two outliers are the C85, which just completes the car, and the 1-ethanol, which, if you have a really high performance car, I'm not trashing on it at all. I just don't think I have enough car for how good of a fuel that is. I know it's a very stable fuel. From what I've heard from some guys at Moto in the cities, which is like an hour from me, that do a lot of the really high horsepower Vipers. They say it's very stable. They make 400 horsepower per cylinder on it. It's just good stuff. It's really good stuff. I just don't think I have enough car for it. With the cam profile and kind of my top end, like intake, the GT350 intake is very good. I might be limited by my cams, from my understanding, just in terms of it won't make any more power past 8,200 RPM or 83 or whatever it falls off, which honestly, you don't need any more RPM than that. It's already a ton, but 9,000 sounds really cool. So, that's worth it alone. The most recent addition to this, liquid vinyl splitter, which I'm honestly obsessed with. I think it looks insane. I think the splitter rods are sweet. It performs extremely well. It's their new 6mm Elite Series material. Before they were making a 3mm material, which I actually had a wicker bill from them on my factory spoiler. This is like I said, it's bespoke, it's a custom one. I kind of had my own dimensions that I wanted to kind of follow the line of the factory splitter. And it's not just a splitter, it's a splitter belly pan combo, which I'll attach an image to. The reason that I wanted this is because my stock belly pan was just trashed. It was like that when I got it, but not an issue at all, so I had to take it off. But I wanted the front of the bottom of the car to be flat bottom. It's completely chassis mounted. The 4 splitter rods are all mounted directly to the crash beam. Well, there's tabs that come out that are mounted to the crash beam. There's 2 mounting spots, kind of, in the middle of the bottom of the front of the car. On the K member is what I should say. They're 2 3/8 bolts that come down, and they're connected to some tabs. And I'll try to attach some imagery so it's better than my terrible explanation of all this. Far back of the belly pan, there's like money clips. So basically you just lift the front of the car up, you kind of lay the splitter on you, on like a creeper, and then you just feed those 2, or the back end into those 2 money clips. It lifts up through the bolt holes. You run some big washers and nuts on it, and then you connect to all of your splitter rods, and you're good. It doesn't take a lot to, get a splitter sufficiently mounted to the chassis. Some fabrication of the front mounts for the splitter rods are important, but with a sufficient air dam and enough support up front, and at least something to secure it to the underside of the car, completely sufficient. I use that word a lot. It's good descriptive. It takes longer to get the car up in the air and on jack stands than it does to actually put the splitter on and take it off. We also went with the race lubers center hood vent. I wanted the race luber ones over the track spec simply because from what I've seen is that a lot of times the high-speed air going over the vent itself can kind of trap the air underneath the hood, and I don't want that. But not to say they're not effective. I know obviously as air travels over, it'll suck hot air out of the hood. It all makes sense to me too. First few sets of the louvers in the hood vent are turned up. You can see it. I'll video it as well. And that helps a ton. It helps with low speed heat dissipation. It helps with obviously high speed as it creates a high pressure zone right in front of the first one, kind of forcing the air over the top of it, allowing the hot air to be sucked out and also leave at its leisure. And it looks really cool. I think it's a sweet looking hood vent. I still got the jellyfish coolant reservoir in there, which is hideous, but the looks come at a different time. The most recent is the big ass whale tail back there. It is a 71-inch APR GT350 wing with singular end plates. The end plates have a little bit of a gurney flap on them on the end. It's supposed to improve the downforce on the outer thirds of the wings by 50%. By the way, I don't know everything. In fact, I know very little. And all of this is just speculation. The engine itself is very harsh with its vibrations and its frequencies, and it's loud and it's not optimal, for longevity, as they say. But I trust RPG, and it's got 2,000 miles on it now. Probably by the time this video's out, it'll have 2 track days on it. Well, actually, it's already got two track days on it. It'll have 4 track days on it. The weekend, I do 2 days. And that's 10 sessions, or 5 sessions each, so it'll have whatever 5 times 4 is, which I think is still 20. I'll have to double check. It's still 20. Another thing I want to mention on the side, I ran AMSOIL in this car for pretty much the entirety of its life. Just recently, not because there's anything wrong with AMSOIL, I went with HPL oil, high performance lubricants. The reason for that is because I'd seen a video that Real Street did touring their facility, where they pretty much just talked about the process that they use, things they do, and I just really liked the detail they went into, the data they shared. I liked the examples they shared. I've also talked to Eric there. He took the time, took about a half hour to talk to me about everything that makes the oil badass, basically. If you head over to their page, they have information on this stuff, but basically the oils are designed for high performance applications. They're more expensive, but that's because they use more expensive components in the oil, which, you spend $20,000 building a motor, a $200 oil change, I don't know if that's it, I think it's less than that, is a no-brainer. That's just something you shouldn't even question. I do get AMSOIL filter still, and I have nothing against AMSOIL. I ran 1550 Dominator in here. I ran their 550 Signature Series. Amazing oils. I think that's it. Check my list. So, obviously being on the track a lot, you try to improve your driver skill and try to become better and more well-rounded. One thing I cannot do physically, just because I'm dumb or unable to, I cannot heel toe very well, or at all. Whether it's like the flexibility of my ankle or I just suck, one of the two. It's probably that one. I can't do it. So I did buy Auto Blip for this, which is like a DLC for a car. It's pay to win. It's very easy. It's really fucking good. Well, I'll just put a clip right here how good it is. That's pretty much the overview of the car. I've probably said a lot of things that are false. If there's something that I mentioned wrong, tell me in the comments. It'll help because then I'll see people are commenting on it. People actually watch the video and are interested. Like I said, I've been meaning to make a video on this. I've done some stuff, done little clips of me filming some little projects I've done. I just haven't actually made a legitimate video on the overview of the car. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out. My Instagram is Keeks_5.2. I'll put it right here. I don't even know if I'll be able to put it here. I've seen that in YouTube videos, so I'm just copying it. Otherwise, I'll put everything in the description. I think I'm going to put links to everything on the car in the description as well, with contacts of people that I know. But if you like this kind of thing, I can do more videos, I'll do more projects, because I will always be breaking stuff, because I'm reckless, and I'm hard on it. So I can make more videos on me fixing things. Maybe I'll be better at talking to the camera and not fumbling or rambling or yapping. So yeah. And I also don't know how to close the video out, so it'll probably just stop.